Well, the first quarter has been marvelous for Ohio State in their 2 college football playoff games. They have jumped on top of their opponents to the tune of a combined 35 points for them, 0 first quarter points for their opponents. In just a handful of hours, they will get another crack, this time against Texas, and it's in that state that we once again check in with Ashley.
Mike, thank you. It is a cold, chilly day here in Texas, but things are going to heat up tonight inside AT&T Stadium as our on-site coverage of the Cotton Bowl continues from Arlington. Ohio State trying to keep this impressive playoff run alive. A win here over Texas would not only send the Buckeyes to the national championship, it would give the Big Ten a 5-1 record against the SEC this postseason. Figured we'd show these numbers on the screen for those scoring at home. It's been a good postseason for the Big Ten against the SEC. Currently 4-1. The only bowl loss so far was Iowa falling to Missouri in a tight one. It is a beautiful thing from a Big Ten perspective. And it does feel like the balance of power is shifting a little bit. Jake, Yogi back with us one more time as we put a bow on our daytime coverage and look forward to this game tonight. Gentlemen, when you think about this matchup, of course, Big Ten SEC is top of mind. But the thing that interests and intrigues you most about what we're going to see play out on this field behind us is what, Jake?
First off, to put a bow on the Big Ten and SEC, I was told it just means more, okay? I was told it's different down in the SEC and they were the best I was just told, so I wanted to remind us all of that. Maybe not so much. But as far as this matchup goes, I'm just excited to see Ohio State, like point blank. And you just don't see a team like the Buckeyes every year. It's rare. Coach Harbaugh would always tell us, hey, there's nothing better than being on a football team. And you can't quantify that or measure it, but you know it when you see it. And the opportunity that Ohio State has, the journey that they've taken here, the adversity that they've faced and these young men have overcome. And how about, like, it's almost prophetic in nature how they ended last season, just a bad taste in the Buckeyes fans' mouths and Ryan Day's mouth and in this team's mouth. And the loss in this stadium last year was a big reason why the seniors on this team said, no, the NFL can wait. I'm coming back to Ohio State because I have unfinished business. Well, another big test, another data point on that journey to hopefully for the Buckeyes achieving their ultimate goal of winning a national championship.
Yeah, earlier this week, Emeka Egbuka said he's been here for a long time but has no hardware. They win tonight. It's crazy, right? He has an opportunity to have the best hardware. I think when I look at this, there's so many matchups. Like, what is the secondary of Texas going to do? They forced 30 turnovers this season, Ash, against Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, G. Scott and company. That matchup is going to be amazing. But I go to the coaches who have been spending every waking hour preparing for this game. You got Chip Kelly against Pete Kwiatkowski. That is awesome. You got Jim Knowles on one side against Steve Sarkisian. That is awesome. I mean, every snap in this game will feel like the entirety of the world is weighing on that snap. Now, it's going to be on the coaches, specifically Ryan Day and Steve Sarkisian, to know which buttons to press. And I cannot wait to see when we get into 4-down territory, when we get into the red zone, when it's a surprise onside, when do you go for 2? Those little things, is they will feel the pulse of their team on the sideline, and when they feel as though it's time to hit that. And those are things they've talked about all week long. And now for them, when they enter this arena here in a matter of hours, they've got to trust that scheme. Yeah. They got to trust that preparation, and those coordinators got to cut it loose. And I cannot wait on the grandest of stage in all of college football right behind us.
You know, I liked what Ryan Day said when he was talking about this new CFP format allows teams to grow throughout the season and develop and show resilience. And it's not like the old format where you lose one game and you're kind of out of it. So when you think about the stars who have been good from out of the gate, and I think about Jeremiah Smith is the first one who comes to mind, and just we're running out of ways to talk about this young man because he's so phenomenal. But games like this, there's always an X factor. There's always something that maybe you're not expecting to see that's going to be the difference. So Yogi, for you, your X factor for Ohio State tonight is who or what?
Well, I think it's easy to say Caleb Downs. It's easy to say Jack Sawyer. I'm going to go to the huddle for Ohio State. If we could, I'd have a mic on Will Howard. This is a team that huddles. They do not go up-tempo like we think Ryan Day and Chip Kelly have done in the past. He calls the play. He looks at the other 10 players on offense in the eye. I would love to hear his demeanor. his confidence, his acumen on this big stage, because he has been through the fire. He has had scars in his career, especially this season. We know this fan base. We got to know it this season. You've lived it, man. It is not the easiest of things, but when you come through it scathed, I think you can be the best version of yourself. So I cannot wait to watch. Like, I'd have a body language camera on Will Howard and Quinn Ewers all game long, because these are two stars, and I do think the best team that wins this ballgame, the quarterback will make 3 elite throws in the second half.
Yeah, Will Howard's leadership is a big piece of the Buckeyes' success, and I love to hear his teammates talk about his leadership. It says a lot about how they feel about him. I think an X factor will be his legs, too. You mentioned, like, key moments. Like, these games, we can often go back and look at a few moments that ultimately decide the game. 3rd and 5. His legs are very viable. Fourth and 3, down in the red zone. I think Will Howard might have 1 or 2 key runs to extend drives. Then on the defensive side of the ball, whether or not Cam Williams starts at right tackle for Texas, I'm looking at Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, both 5-star all-world recruits that when they got to Columbus, the expectation was that they were going to dominate games like this. We saw them dominate against Oregon. They're playing some of their best football. Again, this is why they came back to Ohio State for this game. I'm excited to see those 2 edge players.
You know what's fun about that is neither one of these defensive coordinators blitz a lot. They haven't blitzed really at all in the playoffs. They will in this game. Once we get into the red zone, what does Pete Kwiatkowski dial up for Will Howard? How is he going to navigate that? I mean, Will's done a nice job of getting the ball out of his hand. All game long, he's seen zone coverage. He's going to have to sit and dissect. And then in the red zone, he's going to have to make abrupt decisions. Same thing on the other side for Quinn Ewers. He's been sacked 11 times in the last 3 games. I mean, that is a lot of times him being on his back. So how does he navigate that with protection, resetting protection? Those are the little things, if you're a football nerd, that you'll absolutely adore in this ball game.
These are the 2 best red zone defenses in the country. And when you think about the fact that Ryan Day said execution fuels emotion, I love that line that he had this week, because when you see the way that Ohio State has started each of their last 2 CFP games, it has felt like an avalanche, right? Like, they have just come out of the gate, guns blazing, and it's been one of those things that, yeah, when you execute well, the emotion raises, and it's really hard. Whoever you are, you can be the #1 team in the country. We saw it last week in Pasadena. It doesn't matter. When you are down to a team like Ohio State out of the gate, it is really hard to crawl your way back.
I think the thing I'm most intrigued to see is if Ohio State doesn't start like they have their last 2 times out. Do they revert back to a team that played tight, I think, all season long for the most part, right? Obviously, the Michigan game is an easy way to illustrate that, but all year, they didn't start well. It's not like they've boat race teams to kick off games. I think of Purdue, I think of Northwestern. So if they're down 10-3 early on, again, I'd be down in body language camera. Like, what is it like on the sideline? What is the psyche in between their ears?
Well, this game's a little bit different emotionally as well, because it's good to play football with a chip on your shoulder. It's good to play pissed off, and they played Tennessee pissed off. They played Oregon pissed off. There was a lot of questions about this Buckeye team and about their head coach and Ryan Day in those 2 games. Now we're back all the way to the world is picking Ohio State again, and talking to some of those guys at the media day yesterday, they said they don't listen to the outside noise. They were picked heavily in the offseason, and then they lose to Oregon and Michigan, and people were back not picking them again. And then they're back, they beat Tennessee and Oregon, people are back. So they realize the outside noise means absolutely nothing to them. They can rely on themselves, though.
You know, and I think it's interesting that these teams are going to meet again in the season opener next year, August 30th in Columbus. It is glorious. Yeah, it's going to be a long off season for one of those teams for sure, as they wait for the rematch. We cannot wait for this one tonight. We will have coverage following the Cotton Bowl here on the Big Ten Network. But for now, let's go back to our Chicago studios and Mike Hall.
Ash, thanks very much. Remember, when the game is done, you can get much more from Ashley and company. We will have a special edition of Big Ten Live. It is a Cotton Bowl postgame show when the game is done.